Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Keep the Line Moving, the podcast designed to talk about leadership, life, and inspiration. I am your host, Chris Gargano, and our guest this week is Adam Grossman, the Chief Marketing Officer and Executive Vice President of the Boston Red Sox and Fenway Sport. Adam oversees the following departments: content, marketing, social, advertising, communications, creative services, media relations. I'm probably leaving off a few because there are many. He also oversees these elements with the Red Sox, of course, the Pittsburgh Penguins, Liverpool soccer, football, and real estate ventures. So Adam is a busy person, but has to develop his team to make sure that the work is getting done. That is what we talk about. This and so much more. He was asked at the end of this conversation about his leadership style. You have to hear what he says. The conversation begins now on Keep the Line Moving. It's wonderful to see you. After a long homestand, you're getting refreshed. Folks don't understand. A baseball homestand is a grind in a wonderful way with the sport we love. But after a homestand, you have to feel good coming into the office without yet another game. Fair?
Yeah, a little breath isn't the worst thing, but it was interesting. We were in a meeting 2 weeks ago with about 8 or 10 players, and we were talking about some marketing initiatives. And I think one of the sort of the big themes that came out was, they're saying even other athletes, I think in other sports, don't really appreciate the grind of baseball and like the 162. And we finished a game last night at like 12 hours ago, basically, and now the team is in San Diego this morning. They do have an off day today, but I mean, then they go in tomorrow. But I mean, it is quite a tour and a journey, but it's lucky, and we wouldn't want to be anywhere else. So we're very fortunate.
Adam, you put that wonderfully, and it's so true. Everybody, hides behind the fact, well, they're making millions of dollars and this and that, but it's still a human being, a collective group on a plane in the middle of the night going to San Diego and kind of sometimes having to get together and get everything rocking and rolling for a night game on the West Coast, which is 10 o'clock East Coast time, right?
Yeah. And that's one thing that I think has changed over time, and it's starting to more. I mean, we actually, we've got the Fenway Sports Group has a partnership with LeBron and Maverick Carter, and we're investors into the Spring Hill Company. And one of the core tenets of Uninterrupted that they started and founded was just this idea of more than an athlete, looking at athletes, beyond the field of play, and as people, above athletes. And I think, from a baseball standpoint and what we're working on, I think we're very much interested in doing the same, to give people a different perspective. And yes, you're playing in front of massive crowds, and there is a lot of money, but there's also, it's an extraordinary talent and discipline and focus that you have to have. And, and it's also finite, it doesn't last forever. And that has its own challenges for athletes when their careers come to a close. No matter how successful they are, it's a new chapter when their careers are over. And I think the identity piece is such a important part, and you've experienced by being part of a team. I mean, you weren't playing, but it's nor have I, but just you become part of the fabric of these places, and you sort of feel it and live it in a different way than when you were on the other side and sort of, as a fan. So you sort of have a greater appreciation for the grind and the sacrifices. And it is an opportunity, and it's a privilege to play and to be part of these clubs. But, just like anything, there's a cost to it as well.
Wonderfully stated. And let's just set this tone here for everybody. You are sitting at Fenway Park, the iconic baseball gem that is in the greater New England area, as the CMO, EVP of the Red Sox and Fenway Sport. Tell us what that job entails. There's going to be a lot of people listening really interested on the day-to-day of Adam Grossman.
Yeah, well, I hope they've got a lot of other interests too besides that. But but for me, we're talking at a unique time within sort of the arc of Fenway Sports Group. We started, John Henry, Tom Werner, Larry Lucchino came in 2002 as the principals in this endeavor, and at that point it was buying the Red Sox, Fenway Park, and the New England Sports Network, 80% of the New England Sports Network, the other 20% being with our friends and partners, the Boston Bruins. And from that, that was 21 years ago. Now it's now this sports platform and portfolio. We just talked about our relationship with LeBron, but we also own Liverpool Football Club, the Pittsburgh Penguins. We're working with we've got 50% stake in Roush Fenway Racing. We've got partnerships with other leagues. We're doing real estate ventures. I mean, it's really an extraordinary story, and it's been an incredible experience to be part of that. So about half of my time is focused on, well, I should say most of my time is focused Red Sox, but then there's another huge component that are these other areas and how we're growing those businesses and new ventures and allowing us to, also now that we've got this portfolio, connect different people within the marketing space and content space within Fenway Sports Group. From a Red Sox standpoint, the real goal for what we're doing is how do we emotionally connect with fans, and how do we extend and build our brand? And a lot of that is underneath, how are we connecting the sort of our natural resources, if you will, of players, because ultimately, what fans want and is building championships. And so, we're trying to support our players in building championships, but also building their brands as well. And while they have this platform of working, and being part of the Red Sox organization, that's a unique opportunity. I think the other piece, that we're always working on is just sort of how do we extend Fenway Park. And Fenway Park is this epicenter, and it's a true destination, and it's one of those places that even if you are not a fan of the Red Sox or even a fan of baseball, when you come here you get it. And that is just, it's a rare gem to be able to sort of work with that canvas. And it's a place that's evolved tremendously over the last 2 decades. But there's still so much that we are doing and will do, especially in the neighborhood. And, we also, our business is predicated on getting people here. And so the work that we're doing to make sure that from a brand standpoint, that as much as we are historic and iconic and traditional, as a brand, we're pushing the boundaries of what we are doing and not being sort of burdened in a way by the over 100 years of history that the Red Sox have.
So let me ask you, with the vast responsibilities you have in that pool to keep innovating, how do you prioritize every day? When you walk in and you've got the Penguins, Liverpool, real estate ventures, how do you prioritize, Adam, make sure that you're not distracted and pulled in other areas that may, get you off your game per se?
Well, I mean, and it's probably maybe a segue to sort of the core of what your podcast is focused on. And I think the priorities become really crystallized with 2 ingredients. One is you've got great vision with ownership or CEO. So, with John and Tom and Mike Gordon, I mean, they are incredible at what they do. I mean, and just looking at the success that we've had, you have to look to the top to see that. And Sam Kennedy, who's our CEO, who I've had the fortune of working with and being really close with for 20 years now. I mean, is, again, I'm biased, and I guess, I owe him a lot. So I'll tell you, I think he's the best CEO in sports. And so to be able to have that vision where there's an articulation of what is next, and also the runway to allow us to be able to create and to operate without a thumb on every decision, and there's trust in the leadership group that we have. And that's another piece, is just we've got an extraordinary leadership group that's been together, that's had a lot of continuity. So that leadership component at the executive level, whether that's again, ownership, CEO, colleagues, contemporaries, massive to be able to, I think, crystallize things. And then the other piece is the architecture of the people within the departments. That now my career is, I tell people I feel a little bit middle aged. I started here as an intern, and now I've been here and seen a lot, and now building and developing teams is honestly, I think that's more what I'm doing than marketing in a way, because I think when you get the right people in every single position, from whether it's the CMO or the VP of marketing or a first year assistant, every single hire matters. I was actually with Chris Davis yesterday, who is the CMO of and has really led an extraordinary transformation with New Balance. And he was talking about that he still works with and interviews every person that comes into like 3 or 4 of their marketing departments, just because culture is such an important piece, and it's really the lifeblood of what great foundational work is. So I just think those things, having an incredible team allows to crystallize and magnify the pillars that you're working on every day, and not get sort of bogged down by all the other stuff that can come at you.
So basically, it comes down to you have been led well, and that helps you to lead and care for and develop, as you said, develop your teams. So when you're developing people on your team, what do you say to them by way of continuous learning? Do you implement such programs at the Red Sox? How do you develop your high potential folks? Because you said most of your job is that now.
Yeah, well, again, I think that's the beauty of being part of an organization that really embraces and believes in the development of people and the development of relationships. I mean, we are based, like, Sam talks about this all the time. We are in the relationship business, and that relationship again can be external with partners, fans, but it's also with our players. It's also with our employee community, and our chief people officer Amy Warius is really done an extraordinary job of building out programs and training for it, again, not just the executives, but it's the young professionals that are getting into the full-time workplace. But also, I mean, we've got hundreds of part-time employees, and those part-time employees can range from a 20-year-old intern to someone who's in their 70s that wants to be around the park and maybe an ambassador and welcoming people. So we put enormous time and effort and resources into the training of our team. I think from our department, an extraordinary talent is defined a lot of different ways. You can be a highly talented person who may never want to be or become an executive. And understanding your career path and what choices you're making along the way is something that we do talk to those individuals about. We've got we've had people like in the content space that have grown up sort of behind a camera, whether that's on the video side or the photo side, who say, these are highly regarded individuals for the creative work that they're doing, and also have the skill set to lead if they choose to do that. But some people may not want to do that because that gives up time away from the camera and away from that particular trade, which again it's okay. It's just a different path that you're on. And I think, that goes for, I think, all facets. It's, you can be a highly talented person, a highly driven person. But to me, Mike Hazen, who's the GM of the Diamondbacks, who's a really close friend. I remember when he was here, he would say, the biggest jump you can make as a player is this AAA to the major leagues. Like, that's the largest jump, and you just don't know how people are going to make that jump, no matter how talented that they are. I feel the same way about talented employees and then getting to a managerial position, because they're very different skill sets. And and it's hard, because what got you to the place of having the discussion around taking a larger footprint as an executive are very different skill sets than what got you there. When I went to the Miami Dolphins, I went from a really small department here to overseeing about 9 different departments. And when you have that type of scale, and most of the people that were working in those departments and leading those departments had much more experience than I did. And so, I always felt like during that time, it was sort of like I was wearing a suit that may have been a size or two too big, until I was there for about 3 years, and like literally by the time I was finishing up there, I felt like now I had the foundation under me, and sort of I had my enough experience to sort of understand what I was doing. Because what I didn't realize at the outset of the Dolphins was that you sort of, when you've got any department, but especially 8 or 9, you are your own GM. Like the really, you've got a roster, you've got a payroll, and you've got to figure out, are we getting the best people in each of those roles? And are we well resourced enough in each of these departments? Or what are the trade-offs and the changes and the decisions that you need to make? Going back to the Harvard, the Harvard program. Remember, we took a strategy course, and what the professor basically said, strategy is about the decision of trade-offs, and understanding what you're giving up to put into something else. And I didn't really understand that until I ended up going to the Dolphins, and then seeing, man, like this is not a fixed. These are not fixed departments. They don't have to be fixed departments. They need to be built. They need to be managed. They need to be traded off, to understand, like, what are you building, and how is your vision attaching to the actions and the people that you're either bringing on, developing, or saying, what, it's time, and we think that there may be a better opportunity to bring in new talent that in a different area.
You made a comparison to a cinematographer or somebody in content who's really, really good at their day job, the creative process. But you said this: you have to want to lead, and all that goes with that, which is all the things you just said: developing people, caring for people, having nimble and flexible and adaptable thought processes when you're implementing systems. When you see somebody, Adam, and you can see it in their eyes, right? You lived it. When somebody might not want to lead, but they want the money and the promotion that goes with leadership positions. How do you navigate that tough situation potentially?
Well, I think what we do is we talk about skill set, and really be clear about what the job is. And the other piece that I think a lot of employees, when we talk to a lot of employees, it's not just around what's above you, but what's sort of below you. And are you able to not only manage, but will the organization be supporting the resources under you to allow for that growth? And some of that may not be about talent, but I think the idea around understanding and being very clear with people about what the expectations are at different echelons of their career is critical. We had there's somebody in our media relations department who was here as a translator for several years, and then left to pursue a career as an anchor in up in Maine. And we had a job opening that recently that he applied for, and we told him, we said, listen, you are coming back. If you come back and if you take this job, you have to understand that, one, the organization's changed, but two, like, this is not an extension of what you used to do. This is a completely different job. And it's the same thing that we tell people here who get promoted, which is, even though the people are similar and you're coming to the same office, and the wallpaper and Fenway it all may look the same, like what you are being asked to do is fundamentally different in this new role than it was before. And that is a hard concept for people to sometimes understand, because when you go and you shift organizations, it becomes very clear. Like it's a completely different thing. But as team members, they do have to understand, like, the expectations are higher and the skill sets are different. And what you have built up until this point has gotten you to this point. But now we're asking you to do more. And if you want, if you want more money and a better title and a larger role, which is completely fine and well deserved, you have to demonstrate a wider skill set in which to be able to do that.
That's awesome. So let's take it to the field, Adam, and let's look at, you mentioned LeBron and the projects that you're working on to develop athletes, and not just being athletes on the field, but the totality of the human being that makes up a professional or collegiate athlete. You've had some high profile athletes throughout the winning and the tradition of the Sox, but since you've been there, Big Papi, Pedroia, Chris Sale, I could go on and on, Mookie Betts, for goodness sakes, some incredible athletes. What has been your relationship as the CMO and your departments with those athletes? How do you cultivate that trust so the branding, marketing, storytelling is consistent and feel involved and invested in where the Red Sox brand is going?
Yeah, so it's actually it's been an interesting evolution of that. For me personally, I am not in the clubhouse much. I do work with Alex and the coaching staff, and the player. I know the players, but for me personally, I'm not there all the time and every day. And when you're a player, that clubhouse is your home. And so the people that are around you and that you see every day, like that, those are your teammates, more so than, again, somebody like myself, who's like, I'm sort of in and out. But the team that's within, on the marketing side or the communication side, they are embedded in those environments. And the trust that we need to have as individuals with the players, with the coaching staff, with our baseball operation is paramount. And ultimately, that is, for us, we're always looking to get greater access. We're always looking to get expanded content. But that can be shut down in an instant if we don't have the relationships and the trust across all areas of the baseball operation, whether that's at the chief baseball officer level, or with our director of travel, as an example. I mean, everyone as an individual is really important. And so what we've put a high premium on is for those employees that are, and the team members who are in the clubhouse, they gotta, they represent the department. They've got to be, professional. And they also have to build relationships. And it was clear, when social media started to grow and we started having younger players come in the ranks and sort of grown up with social media, a lot of the ability to have greater access and having being more approachable sort of evolved over time as well. And we thought, the more people are sort of around and kind of part of the wallpaper, more stuff will naturally and organically happen than, hey, here's the CMO coming in to do X. Like, that just doesn't work. What we want is, we want natural occurrences. We want organic content. And, that is predicated on relationships. And so if you have the right people in there and embedded, then the other elements sort of start to take care of themselves. Historically, and I don't think it was always the case here. I think we've gotten a lot better, though, is like, even in the traditional media space, media relations historically was like, man, we're going to protect the players. So access and the social media stuff and all these cameras, like, that's not for us. Like, we don't want that. And there were a lot of clubs across sports where social media was part of communications as opposed to part of marketing. And sometimes there would be conflict in that. I think here what we've really evolved into is that that's a shared space, and that our goal as an organization is to market the players. And if that's through traditional media, great. If that's through digital media and social media, that's also, the end result is how are we marketing our players? How are we magnifying our players? How are we extending our brand? And everybody plays a role in that. And it needs to be a shared responsibility, even whether, again, it's traditional or sort of in the quote unquote new media space.
Okay. Advice. Adam, what advice would you give somebody who's in the minor leagues, college, somewhere in Major League Baseball, the NBA or NFL, NHL? They want to do what you're doing. They want to be the CMO, the EVP of the Boston Red Sox or the Celtics or the San Francisco 49ers. What would you tell that individual to stay on a good path?
One is to ask a lot of questions. One is to ask a lot of questions and grow your network. So there's no substitute for that. That's number one. I think number two is to get real experience and to understand the experiences that you're having. So whether you're at the minor leagues, whether you're in a, not in sports, but in a marketing capacity, or like there's something to be extracted from every experience, but be able to articulate, understand that, learn from that, really, really critical. And the third part I would say is you're going to have to understand that the path is not a straight one, especially when it gets into sports. I started as an intern a long time ago. And if I started as an intern today, my path would be entirely different. And part of that is factors that have nothing to do with me as a person. It has to do with timing, and has to do with the maturity of the organization. There are a lot of people that say, "Oh, I want to get into sports," and it's like, "Okay, great." It's like, "Are you willing to move?" "Well, I'm not so sure." It's like, "Okay, well, like maybe you don't really want to get into sports, or it's like, "I want to get," or it's like, "Hey, I didn't get this internship." It's like, "Okay, well, like, are you still keeping in touch with the person beyond that?" Like, it's not just because you didn't get this doesn't mean the relationship's over. So that sort of discipline and fortitude and the belief that something is going to happen, it's very hard. And the access into sport, the sports industry has grown amazing amounts in the last 20 years. But at the same time, it's still it's high visibility. It's not an easy place to sort of break into all the time. And it takes a certain discipline to be able to do that and to stay there. So I think those three things to me are really important. The growing of the network and building relationships, the understanding of like getting real world experience in whatever capacity you can. And then the third piece is just having the discipline and the fortitude to kind of keep going if that's something that you truly want.
Great advice. I love it. All right, let's close, Adam. You ready? Lightning round. I know it's been a long homestand, but I need your fresh brain here, and I need first thought, best thought. Don't think about it, just answer. You ready?
Yeah.
Here we go. How do you deal with adversity?
Slowly.
Good. How do you give yourself fuel?
Other people.
What does never give up mean to you?
My dad kept telling me that early on, so it's sort of that's always stuck with me, and it's trigger. It's very it's positively triggering.
Love it. What is the value of collaboration?
It's everything.
When hiring people, what do you look for first in a candidate?
Culture.
Describe yourself as a leader in one sentence.
A point guard that tries to make others better.
Yeah, I love it. Great job.
I passed.
Yes, you did. Duke grad. Yes, you did. Adam, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much. You imparted so much wisdom. I think people are going to get a tremendous amount of value from this. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thank you, Chris. And it's great to be on with you and really admire what you're doing and building and the impact you're having. So thank you for asking me to do this. It's really been fun.
Awesome. Thanks, Adam. Best of luck to the Red Sox and you. Thank you.
Thanks.
And we thank Adam very much for being on the show. My number one takeaway is this. He talked about when folks get promoted and they ascend into leadership positions, what happens? It's the same building. They're working with the same people, the same product. However, the relationships have changed. You're a leader now. People are looking at you differently. So you have to react accordingly. You're into development now and listening and getting people to understand the culture and work well together. And Adam also said that sometimes when that doesn't work, people have to leave and get a fresh start. and understand that they're a leader now in another organization. Fascinating conversation. And I also loved very much that he said he had the point guard mentality when being a leader. For our podcast producer, Paul Salazar, I am Chris Gargano. Thank you so much for joining us each and every week. If you could leave a like, a follow, or subscribe, we would appreciate it. Take care, everybody. See you next time.
We thank you for listening to Keep the Line Moving. We would love it if you subscribed or left a review. For more podcast episodes, check out our YouTube page. If you'd like to work with the Gargano Leadership Group, check out our website. This has been a GLG production, copyright 2023. For our podcast producer, Paul Salazar, and our marketing coordinator, Savin Narwal. Have a great week, everyone.